How's it going, everybody? Welcome to week 6. I think we're in now. First phase of this class is over. Kind of the beginning. That's why we took that quiz. Or we laid the groundwork. We've traveled all over the world. We've seen how humans settled and civilizations developed. Now we're kind of moving into the next phase, or empires and epics, as it's sort of called. Um, yeah, and starting in South Asia, and then for the next little section of this class, we're going to look at sort of the classical ages of, the civilizations are established. We'll sort of transition to this idea of empire. What is an empire? How it functions, how it works. To talk about that, we're going to start in South Asia as well. And we're also going to look at epics. So I'll explain a little bit as we go. Before we do, I do want to mention, if you look in the student resources tab, there's a quiz 1 5W responses. So those are kind of, we took the quiz 1, I gave you grades back. Let me know if you have any questions about that. But what I also did, I pulled out 5W responses. Those either responses from students in this class. I took them right off your guys' quizzes, but I think they exemplify kind of what I'm looking for in these answers. So look this over for future quizzes that we'll have. Hammurabi, there, a lot of people did a good job of, like, there is a kind of a good example. Who is Hammurabi? What does law codes signified, sort of social order, or maybe reflected some society? Great. If you do that kind of stuff, 3, 4 out of 5. But how to get kind of 5 out of 5 is, for the example, this one is actually cited in a specific example, like a law itself. So, that's using the course materials and putting them into these answers. So it's kind of what I'm as we go through and as each quiz comes up, I'm going to be sort of watching as you become better and better at history. I'm going to expect a little bit more on how these terms are significant, how they relate to other ideas in this class. So it's kind of the way we go with that. Akhenaten, again, that was good. A lot of people said, he's this pharaoh, he started his own religion, the Aten. Right? If you mentioned new forms of art, that's great. Or shifted his capital. Just reflect that you have an idea of what we talked about, that documentary you watched. And then kind of the last point there, and I mentioned this in a lot of people's things, is what happened after he died, and right, this idea that his legacy was erased, and that it kind of went back to the way it was. Traditional Egypt is an important part of that story. The 4 Varnas, again, people did a good job defining what it was. But again, in this example, somebody actually mentioned the Vedic hymn in which this idea originates from. So, in using the course materials, the readings in your answer. Lapita people, again, this idea of voyage canoes, pottery. If you gave some examples of the type of in this one, like taro, breadfruit, these plants and animals, sort of these peoples brought with them, and ideas as well, things like religion, Maui stories, those ideas. And then the Mandate of Heaven, Zhao Dynasty, China. So we're talking about that. If you could talk about the Zhao transition from Shang to Zhao, and sort of how the idea of emperor emerges. And then the other one, like, take that a little step forward for what did we learn about the Zhao Dynasty itself? These 2 different phases, or the end, how Zhao was able to unify most of northern China, but then ultimately started to crumble away as well. So, again, just using the course materials there. So that's that. Please take a look at that ideas. The other thing I want to talk about before we talk about South Asia specifically is the epic essay. So the next 3 weeks, up until I think it's due March 13th. So we have almost not a full month, but up and right until spring break, basically, to work on these epic essays. The whole idea is I want you to pick an epic that you've wanted to always read, and just read it and write a paper about it. Is this sort of the essence of the assignment? There is the guidelines kind of give it a little bit more, flesh it out a little bit. There's, if you look through the guidelines, sort of the 3 major requirements, a summary of your epic, one of the main points. Number 2, like, what is the context of it? When was it written? Who do we have an author? If not, why? If so, who is it? How are they attributed? And then, when was it composed? Or when do we think it was composed? And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. And then 3, sort of, what is significant? What is the point of significance of your epic? What can we pull out of that explains a little bit about this world? And again, we're going to talk about epics for the next few weeks as we go through societies as well. So for now, just pick an epic. If you have a question about what that is, or if it's applicable to this class, please email me. Put it in your discussion post this week, what epic you're going to read. I gave, if you go back to the table of contents, on the Lamaku site, there is a epic archive you can click on. It has links to epics and some websites where epics can be found, this kind of thing. So I'll talk about that a little more as we go this week. Just pick an epic. Next week we'll sort of start reading it. When I say pick an epic, upload the epic, and also like the PDF or whatever. Show me that you have a physical copy of this somewhere, somehow, right? So I do want you to engage with it on some level. So yeah, and then we're going to do a draft of it, and then we'll kind of work some writing exercises as well as we go through the next couple of weeks. So again, you have a few weeks on it, but it isn't. So read it, get it, find it, and start reading it on your own there. And just kind of for South Asia, so we kind of a lot of information. We talk about empires, so we can talk about this transition to empires. And empires are sort of like a little more diverse than civilizations. A lot of times multiple civilizations can be, or what was a civilization, areas where civilizations were, can be integrated into empires. A lot more sort of focused economics. A lot of these, by the time we get empires, we have monetary systems, units of trade, rulers, all these things. So South Asia, we talk about sort of the main ones: the Maurya, the Kushan, the Gupta, sort of these imperial forces that start forming over South Asia. For example, the Mauryans straddle both the Indus and the Ganges River, even into southern India as well. There, and then the other one here is the epics, and this is where if you're what is an epic? Look over those. I talk about the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Those are the two major epics of South Asia. Again, what is an epic? An epic's a story, is fundamentally, right? It has characters, it has a plot, but it's what is represented in there. So, what do these characters represent? And I talk about this in the lecture. Who is Yudhishthira? Who is Krishna? Who is Rama? Who are these figures? What are the stories? What are their journeys that they go on? What lessons they learn? And what lessons can they teach us down? What can we pull out of it? Ideas of, and this overlaps with religion, Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism, concepts of dharma and karma and moksha and samsara, all of these ideas. So, and I also gave a little link there to some Hawaiian epics. So again, you can pick anything you want. There's a link there to some Pele stories, but also the Kumulipo and what that's all about. So, and then for your discussion post this week, just pick one of those, either ideas of empires, or explain a religion, or a short patch of Bhagavad Gita, explain how that plays into these epics there. So, and as usual, try to relate in your discussion post back to the course materials, the lectures. What are there? The readings in the case of number 3. So. And include the epic you will be reading and as well. So I think that's it. If you have any questions on the quiz 1, just let me know. All right. Have a good day.